Raw under siege, Jinder Mahal's title run, Daniel Bryan being attacked, and more topics being discussed today on the announcers table. Welcome to another episode of the announcers table. I'm your host, B. Rye. My co-host for today, Hertz Gewurz. Gewurz, how you doing today, man?
I'm all right, man. How y'all doing?
We're doing pretty good. So the first topic we're going to be debating today is Raw Under Siege. Gewurz, tell me a little about how you thought the Raw Under Siege went for you.
Those villains over at SmackDown coming over, doing 30-on-1, jumping of guys that had just wrestled, injured guys coming up on people from behind. It was terrible. You saw guys who were normally rivals with each other. You had Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler standing side by side going after all these guys on Raw, completely unsuspecting. Caught Kurt Angle totally by surprise. Nobody knew what was going on. It was pretty exciting stuff, and gotta say, for a bunch of guys to just be following Shane McMahon around like that, looks a little bad on them. It's a bad look.
Well, the thing I did notice about the whole Raw Under Siege is there was key superstars that were not with Shane McMahon when they did take Raw Under Siege. Kevin Owens wasn't involved. Sami Zayn wasn't involved. So they still got part of the storyline going with those three superstars. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. It's a little strange how, the announcers and everyone is trying to paint Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens like they're the bad guys in this when they're the only ones making any sense. Shane McMahon is going against what Daniel Bryan wanted, and I know we'll talk about Daniel Bryan a little bit later today, but Daniel Bryan confronted Shane McMahon on this and said he didn't like that. He didn't think it was a good idea, didn't show good sportsmanship or whatever. You have Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens on the same side as that, and that's a real interesting story to going forward.
I mean, to me personally, I think it was a brilliant idea for Shane McMahon to shoot first. He basically destroyed the entire Raw locker room. I did notice another superstar that was not part of the mix that should have been was Alexa Bliss. I mean, I know you did notice that the SmackDown Women's Champion was involved, but the Raw Women's Champion was not involved. What is your take on that?
She took the same route that The Miz took. Man, those Raw champions just bailed. None of the Raw champions were there, actually, I guess, except the tag team champions. But she had no chance of winning any kind of fight. They were getting surprise attacked. It was, SmackDown had the numbers advantage, the surprise advantage. There was no point in standing there and taking that beating for Alexa Bliss.
Well, I mean, I would have loved to see Carmella or Natalya just beat the hell out of Alexa Bliss. I mean, I love Alexa Bliss. I think she's the perfect Raw Women's Champion, the perfect heel. But we all know she's going to lose. To my next point of this debate, Asuka.
Oh, Asuka is unstoppable. Still hasn't lost a match by pinfall or submission yet in her WWE career. There is nothing anyone can do to her. Her athleticism is really amazing. She really is, and I know the announcers say this every time she steps in the ring, she really is one of the strongest, hardest strikers in all of WWE.
I mean, I love Asuka. I followed Asuka's career through the entire NXT. Like you said, she's undefeated. Nobody can stop her. What I also love about Asuka is her charisma. She can draw the crowd. She can get the crowd into the match. She tells a beautiful story in the ring.
Absolutely, and that's why I think one of her best foils is going to be, if she can get better, is going to be Nia Jax. She's the only one who can believably beat Asuka, but she's a little slow and a little hard to follow in the ring. She tells a disjointed story. Like you say, Asuka tells a beautiful, flowing story, a lot like Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles tell. Nia Jax is a little bit disjointed, but she's the only one with the size and the strength and the charisma to go out there and stand toe-to-toe with someone like Asuka.
I mean, I would love to see Nia Jax and Asuka go at it, but we all know that Nia Jax is another superstar that's being underutilized right now. The women's division in both Raw and SmackDown is stacked, but I think, to me personally, SmackDown has the better female superstars. As you can see, Nia Jax is being underutilized. We don't know what's going on with Sasha Banks. We don't know what's going on with Emma, who, by the way, just had her first pay-per-view and was released this week. What is WWE doing? She's a great superstar.
Man, it is. It's hard to tell. I think what happens with that, and I hate I hate taking the side of WWE creative because they're pretty much always wrong. But when someone goes outside of WWE and makes themselves popular through Twitter, the way that Emma did, or through other social media, the way that Zack Ryder did years and years ago, they don't really know what to do with that. And there isn't really much that they can do with that. I know that you have to take initiative for yourself and do what you can to advance your own career, but you have to do it in a way that the writers can do something with it. Emma being popular on Twitter doesn't make her look like a better wrestler inside the ring. And she is great, but the way that her story had been going, she wasn't supposed to be, some kind of excellent wrestler with a huge fan base following her. She was a conniving, dirty, fighting from illegal points. Her best version of herself was on NXT when she had Dana Brooke backing her up all the time. For whatever reason, they took that away from her, and she just went out and made herself popular, which doesn't really help her character. So I can see why they might have had to move on from her, but I don't agree with the decision either.
Well, I mean, WWE Creative, they could have went with this and made her even a better superstar. I mean, you got to look at the past. Look at that Matt Hardy and Edge, who had a real-life conflict. And what did the WWE Creative did? They turned it into a storyline, which was probably one of those best matches between Edge and Matt Hardy. That rivalry, you felt connected with that rivalry because it was so real life. What they could have did with Emma, and they could have taken all that popularity she was getting on social media and done something with it. But no, what they did, they released her because she was getting too popular on social media. She was telling the truth. WWE Creative does not like the truth.
They're in a weird place where they're trying to be in the reality era, right? They're trying to draw in. They're mentioning outside athletes. They talk about Ronda Rousey. They talk about Conor McGregor sometimes, and they're trying to bring in outside stories into what's going on. Everything that went on with Enzo Amore. They try to bring that in, but they're also pretty scared of it too. They don't really know what to do with it.
But look at Enzo Amore. He has so much backstage heat, but yet they gave him a title. I think Enzo had more heat than Emma did, but they gave him a title.
Absolutely. Well, what they did with Enzo was they gave him the title, and then they set the entire division against him. And all of the rivalries and all of the alignments that had existed in the Cruiserweight division disappeared because everyone hates Enzo Amore. So that became the story. And that was something that Creative was able to do something with. Everyone liking Emma, and Emma thinks she deserves a shot. It's not really anything that Creative can capitalize on.
Well, Emma, my heart goes out to you. I know you're not going to have trouble finding work because you're a great superstar. But here's a superstar I think they should release, Jinder Mahal. His title run has gone way too long. When it first happened, it was great. Perfect heel. But the guy has no promo skills. He doesn't know how to really wrestle. I mean, come on, you beat one of the best wrestlers in the game, which is Shinsuke Nakamura, twice. And the first time you beat him was dirty because he cheated, of course. He's a heel. But the second time, they gave him a kind of a clean win because they threw out the Singh brothers. But that was a distraction to help Jinder win. Me personally, I think they should take the title off of him. I think they need to put it back on either AJ Styles, or if not, just give it to Shinsuke. I want to see Shinsuke have that title. I would love to see a Shinsuke versus AJ Styles at maybe Royal Rumble or WrestleMania.
I think that's the direction they're heading. I mean, everyone knows that WWE is going on their tour of India pretty soon. And I think the direction they're going is they would have liked to have had Jinder Mahal hold the title as they entered India. But I think you're right. The way to go is to take the title off him and probably have him win it back at whatever event they're doing in India. Probably what they'll have is, because you can't, you can't have, I'm laughing just thinking about it, you can't have Jinder Mahal up against Brock Lesnar at the pay-per-view.
If that happens, Jinder's going to get squashed. Brock Lesnar had a tough time just with Braun Strowman, but what I didn't like about that match is it only took one F5 to defeat Braun Strowman. It took Undertaker 3 F5s. Like, come on.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and I think what they're going to do is they'll set up the rematch to have Jinder Mahal take the championship back. But his title run, I got to disagree with you there. I think his title run has been pretty good. I mean, yes, he's a heel. And he's a classic wrestling heel. He's not like the heels of today who will talk a bunch of smack and then back it up with their athleticism. He's talking a bunch of smack and backing it up by having his cronies come and help him win his matches. And the promos that he did, he had to walk him back a little bit because they wound up being a little too racist, but shedding light on how racist the WWE audience actually is by making those awful jokes about Shinsuke Nakamura, and then he points out, hey, you guys are laughing at this. You're bad. You're just as bad as I am. And that's a really good point, and that's a good heel point because it makes the WWE audience sit back and have to reevaluate what they're doing, what they're laughing at. So I think his title run has been, I wouldn't call it great. I wouldn't say this is one of the best title runs in the history of the title, but it's been pretty good, especially for a heel.
I mean, yeah, his title run has been pretty good. I do give him that, but like I said, it's all been dirty wins. We had that stupid Punjabi prison match. I mean, you could barely see inside the ring. The Great Khali come and interfere. Like, come on.
The Great Khali, who was prior to this title run, the only person that Jinder Mahal had ever actually feuded with.
It's crazy. Going back to Raw Under Siege, we saw this week that Daniel Bryan was viciously attacked by Kane. As we all know, Daniel Bryan is retired, and I love the fact that they had Kane do this spot with Daniel Bryan because, one, Kane is a veteran. Two, Kane and Daniel Bryan have a history as a tag team, have a history in the ring. I love the whole angle of Daniel Bryan being annihilated by Kane in a dark office.
The whole thing looked great. It played very well on television. It was very well done, and I gotta say, I don't like a lot of what Kane does, but that was excellent, and it was very well played. And if that was, you know, part of Kurt Angle's plan all along, more power to him. That was excellent. And that's
I mean, it did look like it was part of his plan, but you always got to realize Stephanie McMahon came down on him. She told him she probably made a mistake in having him as general manager, which I don't think it was. Stephanie's just pissed off that Shane McMahon got one up on her. He attacked the Raw locker room, and in that process, he got his own general manager hurt because, you know, Daniel Bryan went to talk to Kurt Angle, and things didn't go the way Daniel Bryan thought. Now, the reason why I love this is because I'm an old school wrestling fan. I know you're an old school wrestling fan. This kind of reminds me of the Invasion angle from back in the early 2000s. I know you remember that. So
yeah, that's what they were going for with that, and that's one of the reasons why I liked it, and why I think you know, lots of people liked it. Why it was as popular as it is.
I'm really looking forward to Survivor Series. You know, we all look forward to Survivor Series. We always look forward to the major pay-per-views, Survivor Series, but Survivor Series looks like it's going to be great because it's Raw versus SmackDown, which we haven't had in a while until last year. What's your take on Survivor Series this year?
I think they did a really good job in a really short amount of time. Like, I don't know when it was that they came up with the concept. I mean, Survivor Series has obviously been around for a while, but you know, it was only Raw versus SmackDown starting, like 3 weeks ago. So in a very short amount of time, they did a lot of work to build up and put a lot of stakes on these matches. It makes it feel very important. And that's when wrestling is at its best, when there are stakes on these matches and you think something's going to change, and this change is going to affect things going forward. It worked extremely well with the Authority. You know, with that the Dolph Ziggler MVP match that he was never able to capitalize on, but with things like that, that's when wrestling is at its best, when they can create these storylines that you can follow and you think something great is going to happen.
All right, guys, this concludes our episode of the Announcers Table. I'd like to thank my co-host Hertz Gewurz for stopping by and putting his input on the show. Anyways, guys, this is your host B-Rye. Make sure you check out the Announcers Table every week. Make sure you like, subscribe. Check out the other channels on Geeks Unlimited as well. Until next week.